This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear Micropub in Southbourne-on-Sea. No loud music, no TVs, and no ringtones. Just good ale, good conversation, and good times. Just like a pub used to be. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.
Here come the cherries and we're heading for the top of the tree. Bournemouth is a team that's going to show Division 3. Here come the leaders and the scorers at the Saturday, showing how to win the Southern way. So we sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. While you're out there winning, hear the shouting and the singing. We sing, come on Bournemouth, come on Bournemouth. Here come the cherries, here come the cherries, here come the cherries, number one.
Hello and welcome to All Departments. On a night of high emotion at Dean Court, our sensational Cherries took full possession of the south coast of England with a historic 2-0 win over near neighbours Southampton. Here to make the most of the opportunity of a lifetime is Dave Gullis. Dave, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me back again.
No problem. Great to have you back on. Now, I spent a reasonably mundane day at work today, but the normal humdrum activities that I undertook were enlivened by frequent fist pumps and whispered cries of yes for what was a fabulous and historic win for us last night, wasn't it?
It was a really great night, I have to say. The only disappointing thing for me is that I don't have any Southampton fans where I work. So there was no chance to gloat at all.
I'm sure you've got some. I've got a handful of Southampton mates. I try not to talk to them, but occasionally I engage with them, and that's been certainly something I've been doing in the past. Well, just under 24 hours. I wouldn't say I've been gloating, but I've certainly gently reminded them of the score and asked them indeed what the score was. So been waiting a long time, and yeah, it's great. It's like I remember when we beat Leeds a couple of seasons ago. I think we beat them 4-0, and just felt fantastic because you've been waiting so long for it. I mean, I was there when we beat them, Southampton. This is in the League Cup back in. I looked it up today. It was in September 1987. Which hasn't really been mentioned much. There's been a lot of the talk about the 58 years for a league victory. But still, either way, that's nearly 30 years ago. And I'm sure many people have not seen us beat Southampton before that were there last night. And, well, it's worth the wait, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It was the best performance I've seen us have for quite a while, to be fair.
And no surprises really in the team selection. Obviously, Junior Stanislas is injured and we're not going to see him for a few weeks, unfortunately. But his misfortune was Max Gradle's good fortune, and ours in so much as he's come back, it seems like, to immediate full fitness. No behind closed doors friendlies for Max, just straight back into action, and he started for the first time after playing most of the game against Watford. On the bench, there was no Juan Iturbe. Lewis Graben came in onto the bench. There was some question marks about that from the fans. I heard a little whisper, and I haven't heard much, that Iturbe might have turned up a bit late and incurred Eddie Howe's wrath. Did you hear anything about that?
No, I didn't hear anything about that, but it would follow suit for Murray. Didn't he once turn up late and couldn't get named, so he just got sent home?
Yeah, I think he certainly didn't make curfew, as it were, and Eddie. Well, I think Eddie's way of dealing with these things seems to be, right, you're not going to play in this game, you're not going to be in the matchday squad, but then, going forward, don't let it happen again. But then you're back. Yeah. It's all sort of drawn a line under, which is, it's the only way to deal with it, really. If someone's persistently offending, then he's got to take a bit of a harder line. We'll have to wait and see if anything else comes out about our loanee, or he's loaned out, Lee Tomlin, but all in good time. I'm sure it'll all come out eventually. Anyway, back to the game. Southampton, I hate to say it, but I have watched them on the telly mainly this season. Saw them once at St Mary's when they beat us, and I think they're a pretty good team. I mean, they're well up the table. They'd had some good results recently. Lost to Chelsea, which is no disgrace. Chelsea have improved a lot. And when I saw their team, particularly Shane Long and Charlie Austin up front, I was quite worried going into the game. But how did you feel, in the hours leading up to the game? Were you confident?
Oh, absolutely not. I was expecting nothing from the game, I have to say. You go in there hopeful, don't you? You think, maybe we could do something. But every time I've watched us play Southampton, they've always turned us over. It's just not even been close, really, apart from that last game where we turned it around a little bit in the second half, and we looked a lot better when we brought on Stanislas and King up front. Every other time, they've just had the hoodoo over us. So I really wasn't expecting anything.
No, it's been in most of the games recently, and we didn't have any for many, many years, but there's been 4 or 5 recently in the past few years. It's looked like boys against men, and unfortunately we've been the boys and they've been the men. And that second half at St Mary's, Eddie referred to it in the lead up to last night's game, saying that was a turning point in our season when he had to take decisive action at half time, and he thought we played very badly. I think he might have even said it's the worst he's seen us play all season. And so maybe we have got something to thank Southampton for after all, because he found a solution to his pace problem, which we'd obviously were struggling with post the Callum Wilson injury, and then we went on to the results improved a bit after that. Anyway, from the get-go, really, the atmosphere, I thought, in the stadium was good last night. I remember when we played them at home in League One, it was also, I think, in March, it was a Saturday afternoon. I was surprised at how muted the atmosphere was that day. But last night, it seemed a lot more, I wouldn't go as far as to say fierce, but certainly there was a lot more passion in the crowd. Even the light show, which I've got mixed feelings about, especially as the first 2 times it was used, we lost both of those games, seemed to do the tricks. And it just, I don't know about you, but sometimes before a game you think, the atmosphere seems a bit flat, when the teams come out and all that kind of thing. But it didn't seem like that last night from like the first moment, did it?
No, not for me either. It was a huge improvement on previous home games. I've been a bit disappointed, especially Arsenal when they came down, because when we went to the Emirates, everyone was saying, how quiet it was, and is it a library, and blah, blah, blah. But we were like that at home. It just seemed really bizarre. But last night, it was a lot better. I will say, I'm a bit disappointed that the drummer has had to leave the North Stand, because for me, that beat actually gets people singing at the same time. I think that's the thing I missed right before the game when Mike Botte does his make a noise for the boys kind of thing. Normally when he goes to the East Stand, the drummer then starts in the North Stand, and then the whole of the North Stand sings together, and it's really impressive. Whereas at the moment there's a bit of a middle of the North Stand and left-hand side of the North Stand almost competing against each other. But last night was much better, definitely.
Yeah, you do sometimes hear the same song being sung at slightly different times, and I guess that is coming from the North Stand. That's where most of the songs emanate from. The drummer's now in the Ted McDougall stand. I saw him last night actually in the main stand, but only just as I was leaving. He looked like he was putting his drum away, so maybe that's where he keeps it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Some people don't like the drummer. I think it's mostly people who have sat near him and perhaps too near. But yeah, like you say, it does help to, I guess, coordinate some of the atmosphere in terms of people singing at the same time. Go on.
I think the South Stand as well has really picked up. I think last night there's a few times where they started to chant as well, and that encourages everybody else. So the more stands that join in, the better it is for everybody. It's not just relying on one stand all the time. No,
I think the South Stand's proximity to the away fans can stoke that fire a bit as well, which also helps. So yeah, a good night on the atmosphere front as well as on the pitch. And the team, were straight out of the blocks. We really looked on it as soon as the game kicked off. After the game, Koeman said in his interview that we showed more in terms of belief and spirit and character and mentality. Those are the words he used. And I mean, I don't want to heap too much praise on a Southampton manager, but he got that right, didn't he?
Yeah, totally. We came out absolutely all guns blazing. I have to admit, when I saw the team and it was 4-4-2, I was looking forward to it. I wanted to see two up front, but I was just slightly nervous as well, just to how we're going to cope in the middle, just because of all the stats. When you read that all our midfield have run, thousands of kilometres, you think, well, getting rid of one, does that mean the other two have got to run even further? Is that possible? But it just worked perfectly, just like a dream. We went absolutely straight at them. I think we had a shot like almost in the first minute from Richie. It was just fantastic start.
Yeah, you mentioned about running. Someone who did a lot of running last night, and he did against Watford as well, and he's proven to be a real thorn in the side of the defenders, is Josh King. His pace is such an asset, and he doesn't weigh in with a lot of goals, but he's causing the opposition problems all the time when he's playing in that position. And I think that's the upside, and I was hoping it would be 4-4-2 last night, and I expected it to be. And he's playing higher up than Afobe, and it was him who did the work that led up to the chance you're referring to, which was he got to the byline ahead of his man, it was Van Dijk or someone, and pulled it back, and it deflected, I think, off Afobe into Richie's path, and then he had an angled shot. Says on my notes it was on 59 seconds, so yeah, just inside the first minute. Fraser Forster, who's had rave reviews since he's come back, got to that one. But it was, I guess, we just looked ourselves and we looked at the team that always seems to appear in March. I don't know why. Under the lights at Dean Court, I mean, we've only had one game in March and we won our first game in February this year, and I thought, February's going to be better than normal. Well, March is here now. We've had a win which has, been satisfying on all fronts. And yeah, it was just immediately we came out of blocks and we kept it up all night as well, which is potentially different to some of the performances that we've had where we've started fast, got an early goal, but it hasn't always ended up with us getting the win, has it?
No, that's absolutely true. We tend to sort of run out of steam or just start to sit back a little bit too much. But last night, it almost seemed like the team of the Championship again, where we just went absolutely full guns all 90 minutes. And it's the first time we've done that for a few games. I think certainly the Stoke game, we were all surprised by the lack of effort, it almost seemed. The Stoke sort of like really nullified us all over the pitch, whereas this time we were absolutely on the front foot. And Southampton didn't know what to do. No,
we were definitely done tactically, I thought, against Stoke, because they didn't. I mean, it's pretty harsh criticism to make of them when they won 3-1 away from home, but they didn't do a lot apart from have those free chances and like you said, nullify our style of football. But it worked for them, and fair play to them. But yeah, that wasn't the case yesterday. We were able to play our game, and I guess Southampton are probably a little bit more of an attacking side than you'd say a team like Stoke. But well, we kind of won not just the physical contest, but also the tactical contest, and it just all fell into place, didn't it? And the game was being played mainly in their half, in the first half of the game, and we had a load of corners. I'm always being asked by my friends who think I'm a bit of a stato sometimes, how many corners do we need to score a goal? And I tell them it's 10. You need 10 corners on average to get a goal. We actually had 10 last night in the end. I didn't count them, but I looked up when I got in. We didn't score a goal from those, although we did have obviously the 2 set piece goals. But I was surprised a little bit by the lack of variation in our corners. And this is only a small observation considering everything else was, pretty positive on the night. It's been a long time since we've seen the step over corner, and we always just seem to play it now into the 6-yard box. Do you think we should vary our corners more?
Yeah, definitely. I think I didn't have many criticisms from last night, but one of them was I know we scored 2 set piece goals, but our delivery just didn't seem that good to me. It rarely did it go over the first man. And they were just clearing it. So they didn't seem in trouble. We had 10 corners. I don't think any of them really caused any issues. And as you say, if we can mix it up a little bit, it makes them think. Otherwise, they just get into a routine, and they've got some big guys. That Van Dijk bloke at the back, he was like a magnet to the ball. He just headed everything. He just played so well.
And he's fast as well, isn't he?
God, yeah. So if he's constantly heading it, you think, well, do something else. Just try something else. But as you said, it's a small criticism on a very good night.
Yeah, we went through a period where I think we scored 3 goals in 3 games from corners. There was definitely one at Chelsea. There was one against Man United that went straight in from Junior Stanislas, and I think the other one against Man United might have been the step-over corner. I think that was Man United.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was the last time we saw it. It's about time we pulled that one out again. I missed that corner. At least once more before the end of the season. Anyway, like we said, only a small point on a great night. But Southampton had the first, what I thought, really good chance of the night, and I was actually surprised. Charlie Austin got on the end of it. Cedric Suarez, there was a neat passing move actually amongst the Southampton players. It was quick fire, and Suarez was then able to cross the ball in. And Austin looked like he had the goal at his mercy, and as I was watching it develop, and the ball was coming in, and then everything kind of slows down in your mind as you watch it, because you think, this can't be happening. We're not going to concede to them. And he inexplicably fired wide. I don't know where you were sat last night. I was in my usual seat in the family stand at the end of the main stand near the Steve Fletcher stand. So I had a reasonably good view of it. But what I couldn't see was how far wide it went. And I haven't seen that since. But I was amazed that he didn't get that on target.
Well, I sit right behind the goal, behind the north stand.
Oh, you had a good
view.
So
I had a brilliant view of that. And when the ball came to him, I thought, we're in real trouble here. But I don't know if you've noticed, but Cook then does a slide to try and block it. And I think he was aiming then for the corner, and he must have missed by a good yard and a half, I reckon. So it wasn't a danger, but it was down to Cook, who personally was my man of the match. He just sort of threw himself in front of him, and he just tried to curl it into the corner. But as I say, it was well wide. Boric wasn't worried, I don't think.
No, I was. Yeah, well, you mentioned Cook. We might as well talk about him now. I mean, the whole defence, they played well against Watford with Igalo and Deeney, and another clean sheet, obviously, last night, our first back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League. And Cook was, the standout amongst, 4 really good performances, plus Boris, of course. And the way he put his body on the line last night. I mean, particularly in the second half, there was a couple of times when he was just throwing himself into challenges, getting injured and dragging himself up off the ground. And of course, he's always been a good ball-playing defender as well. And he's occasionally comes under criticism for making mistakes and some of the decisions that he makes. But he was, like you said, he was titanic last night, wasn't he?
Absolutely fantastic. Some of the headers he did low as well, really, really brave. And there was one moment where the ball was played through for Mane, and he started running after it, and then realised the ball was behind him, and then tackled Mane with his heel. He sort of like did a backward heel to tackle him. I thought, how have you done that? You're running the wrong way, and you've still tackled him. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
I think when it works for us, and everybody clicks at the same time, those things just seem almost as superhuman. You think, how do they do it? And it's it's just fantastic when you see it all come together. And Boris as well. I mean, I thought he was quite brave at times last night. He didn't have loads of work to do, but there was a few times, especially in the first half, when he had to come out for crosses, high balls that Austin and Long were looking to get on the end of. And a couple of times it was 50-50. And he had to kind of throw himself forwards, risking perhaps a clash of heads or something to get hold of the ball. He was in the programme last night talking about his time at Southampton, but also his wobble back in the autumn. And it's just worth a word on him, because he is again a rock in the goal, isn't he?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. Before his injury, I don't know how bad his knee was, but he never came off his line. Didn't do any commanding at all. He's always been a great shot stopper, but didn't command his box. Last night is probably the most I've ever seen him come off his line. And as you say, he was going in between people, he was just throwing himself everywhere. And that gives the rest of the defence much more confidence. And also the attackers think, aye, if that ball goes up in the air, I'm probably going to get clattered. Let's see where he is before I go. And it just puts a little bit of doubt in their mind. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, he played really well. And in the end, if you compare his performance to Forster's, he was definitely the better of the two keepers. Forster had, he's clearly a good keeper, and he was commanding in many ways. I mean, he's one thing you could still level at Boris is his kicking and distribution. There's still issues with that. Forster, I noticed last night he didn't make a single error on that, and his kicks were always, clean, and they never went out. They always went, or at least stayed on the pitch, and most of the time to a teammate. But yeah, I'm just going to come on to the goal now. And the first goal he made, a small error for. The second goal was partially his fault. So Boris was definitely ruling the roost between the sticks last night. So yeah, we scored after half an hour. When you have a period of dominance and you don't score, it can be obviously a bit of a worry, because you think you're going to get the sucker punch. But luckily we scored, and we scored at a reasonably good time, as if there's such a thing. Again, Josh King was in some respects the architect of the goal, because his pace took him ahead of Fonte to a ball that Fonte looked favourite for. And then they had a bit of a tussle. And King emerged with the ball. I couldn't quite see it because it was right in the corner. And I think there was the linesman in the way or something. And he was off. And then he had essentially a clear path. Not exactly that he was clean through on goal, because he was coming in from the side. But, the path was clear in front of him to make a telling pass, which may have led to a goal. And Fonte quickly brought him down. And it was, clearly a professional foul, whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't violent or anything like that. But I was still surprised, when we got the free kick, that Mike Dean didn't pull out the yellow card. What did you think?
No, I agree. I mean, first of all, King to get to the ball and keep it in and then run away from Fonte was amazing. How he got past him, I have no idea. But if you're then running, if you're then running at the goal and then somebody puts their arms around you and starts kicking you, but surely you're stopping, if not a goal scoring opportunity, just an opportunity. It's got to be a yellow card. But he kept the cards in his pocket all night, I think. I can't remember anybody getting booked.
No, and we should of course say Josh King became a father for the first time yesterday. He admitted after the match he'd fibbed to Eddie Howe and told him he'd got a couple of hours sleep, which isn't enough anyway. Quite clearly didn't get any sleep and still managed to play 70 minutes at full pelt and get us in some good positions, and this one of course led to the goal. And then so Matt Ritchie took the free kick, he whipped the delivery in, and I think it took Forster by surprise, because he sort of poured it away. It went straight through, it didn't bounce or anything. He poured it away with his right hand, but it caught him off balance, and he fell, Forster, and then the ball just bounced out into the 6-yard box. Obviously, a goalkeeper would be looking to push it wider than that or punch it further, so it wasn't such a threat to the goal. But he didn't get that one right because he was taken aback by, I guess, the direct and speedy cross shot, I suppose, that Ritchie put in. And the ball just bounced on the edge of the 6-yard box. Steve Cook found himself in a little bit of space, and he doesn't score lots of goals, Steve Cook. After all, he is a central defender. But when he does score, he shows this kind of liking for the spectacular. And this wasn't even his most spectacular goal, but it wasn't exactly an overhead kick. It was just a sort of backwards, sideways, whatever you want to call it, volley. He hit it into the ground, which made it look slightly clumsier than some of the other goals he scored, and it just went through into the gap where Forster should have been, but he was still picking himself up off the floor. How is there any explanation for Steve Cook scoring 3 or 4 goals a season and nearly all of them being contenders for goal of the season.
I think afterwards as well, he admitted that in training he scored one very similar. So I don't know if it was just in his mind that if it comes anywhere near me, I'm swinging a boot at it rather than putting my head to it, because it was almost head high by the time he'd hit it. But I think you're right. I think Forster, I don't know if he was unsighted or something, but he just seemed to be standing there, and all of a sudden the ball was in front of him, and he just stuck a hand out. He wasn't prepared at all. And as you rightly said, normally when you're a keeper, you try to push it wide rather than push it straight out, because you're pushing it in the danger area. But it was fantastic the way Cook sort of manoeuvred his feet to be able to get the body angle to hit it. And admittedly, as you say, it went into the ground first, but straight into the top corner. Lovely.
And then, of course, the ground erupts. I was more than happy to join in with all of that. But my mind soon turned to the only other time we led them in recent memory, when they played in that game I mentioned earlier at Dean Court. And we lost 3-1 in the end. We went 1-0 up. And I think it was Della Valle, was that his name? He was Scandinavian. And we had him on loan briefly. And he scored in that game. And then they came back. We made a couple of defensive mistakes. And they managed to run out easy winners in the end again. But that was no problem, as it were, last night. We upped the tempo, actually, after the goal. Max Gradle, who didn't feature as prominently as he did against Watford, but certainly put in a really decent shift last night. Sent in a bit of a stinger from distance, but it was a little too high. And then just after that, and not long after the goal, Koeman made a tactical change, and he brought on Steve Davis and put him, I think, in the midfield. Yoshida went off, but anyway, he went with 4 at the back, where he was previously playing a kind of 3 with 2 sort of wing back come midfielders. So he went to the flat back 4. And he said after the game that the reason for that was that he was trying to combat Charlie Daniels' many forays into the opposition's half. And, you know, we all know about that if you watch Bournemouth. I was quite surprised that Koeman didn't have a plan for that before the kickoff.
Well, exactly that. I mean, he actually said as well that Bournemouth always play 4-4-2. So I was trying to accommodate that, and I think, well, we haven't played 4-4-2 that often this year.
Once
I don't know
in about 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he was watching last year's DVD or something to see how we were playing, but they just couldn't cope down the left, could they? We were just swamping them down. I mean, Richie was going okay as well on the right, but down the left, that's where our main threat was, between Gradle and Daniels. They were having their right back for mincemeat.
Yeah, and Charlie, of course, he was being whispered about for an England call-up. Those whispers have got slightly louder recently. Roy Hodgson was at the Stoke game, and he was at the Watford game. Or was it Everton? It might have been the Everton game he was at, and the Watford game. And, you know, rumours are now getting quite believably significant that he's going to be selected for one of the friendlies, into the squad anyway. I mean, if he gets on the pitch, it'd be fantastic. I thought that his performances did merit a call-up and do merit a call-up into the England squad, but I thought his age, I think he's 29, might be against him. But it would be, I mean, obviously we want to stay up this season, but it would feel like the icing on the cake if one of our players got an England cap this season, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally. Just a recognition that you don't have to play for a big club to be good enough to play for England. And when you watch Match of the Day or live matches, I can't think of another left back that's had the impact that he's had this season. Some of his defending has been excellent. That's the big improvement this year. But his attacking play, I can't think of another equal.
No, it's just been a kind of eye-opening watch, because he's always been a good player, but he's also been one of those, probably along with Mark Pugh, who's been somewhat doubted by the fans as we've stepped up through the leagues. Can they cope? Are they playing well enough? And, proved people wrong time and again. And the ultimate proving people wrong would be to get an England cap. And if I was England manager, he'd be straight in the team. But fingers crossed he'll at least get in the squad. And even that would be a massive achievement. Anyway, we kind of saw the half out comfortably. There was more corners for us, the same old corner routine, but the half ended in unusual circumstances. The game just suddenly stopped, and something that I've never heard before at Dean Court was the sound of every single seat popping back up as people stood up. Because usually when people stand up at the same time, it's because a goal's been scored or there's some kind of incident, so there's loads of noise. But, I think everybody knew something potentially serious was going on down by the dugouts. And we later learned that Kevin Friend, the fourth official, it sounds like he fainted. He collapsed into the Southampton dugout, hitting his head. I saw a picture earlier. He had a cut on the front of his nose. And the game was, delayed for a few minutes, and then the refs, I think he just said to the players, just kick the ball out and I'll blow for half time, because he didn't have a fourth official and it wasn't really all right to carry on when Kevin Friend's health was a bit of a worry. Luckily, he left on his feet, and read earlier today that he's out of hospital. Not really much more you can say about that, but certainly an unusual end to the half, and I guess just glad he's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite an eerie experience, to be honest. It reminded me of what's the name of the guy, the Tottenham guy that went down in the middle of the pitch?
Fabrice Muamba, Bolton.
When everyone goes quiet, because we in the North Stand thought something had happened to somebody on the bench, because it seemed to be sort of like all round the Southampton players that were just waiting and looking at people, and you think, something's happened there, and all the players stopped, and as you say, everybody stood up, and it was just like a silence of what's going on, and then he blew up and everybody went off. And so we were all looking around going, what happened? We couldn't see anything. I don't know if you were that much closer that you knew what was happening at the time, but we didn't know.
All Departments is sponsored by the White Bear Micro Pub on Southbourne Grove, the perfect pre- and post-game venue to chat about the game, and only a 25-minute walk to the ground, or there's a bus stop right outside. Wear your AFCB shirt on any match day and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk. Now, unfortunately, at this point in the podcast, we had a surprise visit from the technical gremlins. I think they may have been hired by some of my Southampton supporting friends. Luckily, little of importance was lost, aside from Dave and I discussing the rights and wrongs of singing gleefully about Charlie Austin's injury. So let's rejoin our chat just as we were about to discuss the second goal of the night. So then we scored the second goal, and to my, minor shame, I was moments before discussing with Rob, who sits in front of me, Afobe's performance, and we were casting some doubt upon his potential for international selection, either for Congo or for England. But no sooner had we said all this than he won a free kick himself over on the right after a foul by Van Dijk, and there was another beautiful delivery from Matt Ritchie, which really put Fraser Forster in a bit of a muddle, which in many ways led to the goal, because he couldn't decide, Forster, whether to come and get the ball or to stay at home and try and make any save that was required. And that slight hesitation allowed Afobe to get in first, and he had a lot of defenders around him, but he had his eyes on the ball all the way across, and he rose out of this small pack of Southampton defenders, none of whom seemed to jump, and glanced it into the net. And again, he didn't need more than one touch to score.
all the goals he's scored for us, he hasn't needed a touch and then a shot. It's been first time. And I read today that he's had 5 shots on target and scored 4 goals. So despite his inability to completely dominate defences, you don't have to give him many chances to score, do you?
No, it's a goal scorer's instinct, isn't it? That's what he's got that we've been lacking for basically most of the season. And just before the kick was actually taken, I had the opposite of the commentator's eye, whereby I just turned to my friend and said, I bet we tart about with it here, lose the ball and end up defending our own goal. But then they crossed it in. Lovely. It was a beautiful cross as well. It had lots of height. So I wondered actually whether the keeper thought it was going to go a bit further than it did. But it really dipped down. And as you say, Afobe got there quickest and glanced it past him. It was lovely.
Yeah, it was a big relief as well because, as we alluded to earlier, I was certainly gnawing my fingernails for large parts of the second half, thinking we need the second goal. We need to put some distance between us and them, which is always the case. But I think as this game had so much subtext because we were playing Southampton, and certainly for us it's a game that means a lot, I was more on edge than usual, which is saying something. But yeah, we were 2 goals clear. Afobe, if he continues to score at this rate, his goals are going to go a long way to keeping us in the division. And, you know, despite the little criticism that he's come under after his last few games, he's paying the transfer fee back with every goal. I don't know what the value of a goal is, but I'd imagine the value of 3 points is certainly quite high if you compare it to the money that could come in next season. And yeah, he's proven to be a good buy. I mean, you buy a centre forward to score goals, and he hasn't let us down on that front. And then the game largely came to quite an uneventful end. I was pleased to see Max Gradel go off, not because he played badly, but he went off in the 84th minute. He hasn't had, by the sounds of it, much football at all. And that would do him the world of good, playing almost a full game last night. But I thought, you know, he's looking worn out. No surprise there. And Mark Pugh needs to come on for the last few minutes. And you know Pugh's going to do his bit defensively as well. What did you make of Gradel's performance last night?
To be quite honest, I was amazed. I didn't go to Watford, but I'd heard good things about him. But I thought, surely somebody that's been off that length of time can't be that good. It must be people just looking through rose-tinted glasses kind of thing. But I thought he was fantastic. It looked like he played all season. My only fear, I didn't actually think he'd start last night, because I thought, well, if he's played Saturday and then there's Tuesday and then we've got Newcastle away, maybe Howe will start somebody else and just sort of bring him on just so he doesn't get overly tired. Because although, you know, for the fans, it was a hugely important game to beat Southampton, in the whole sort of context of the league, it's possibly more important that we beat Newcastle if you had the choice between the two, because you've got to beat the teams around you. We're top of that mini league, aren't we? We're that many points ahead. But if we can beat Newcastle, that's another team almost we're condemning, that they can't catch us. They might not be condemning them to go down, but at least they can't catch us, which is the key thing.
Yeah, I like being top of that mini league. It's definitely the place to be. Certainly where I would have chosen to be at the start of the season. Well, obviously you want to be higher up, but I can remember saying at the start of the season, if we were on 35 points going into the last 7 games, which is when we hit this, you know, pretty tough run-in, that we'd have enough and we'd stay up. Well, not quite there, but we're nearly there. We weren't entirely comfortable in seeing it out yesterday. There was one shot they had, which Boritz dealt with very well. Romeo slipped Mane in. Mane was pretty quiet last night as well, actually, but he's fast. And he got on the end of this little pass which kind of cut through the defence, and he was clean through, but it was too close to Boritz, and Boritz was able to come out again off his line and kind of smother the ball before Mane could get. Well, he did have the shot, but Boris was so close to it. It was like, less than a foot, and he just blocked it, and that retained the clean sheet, which means a lot to the defenders, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, completely. I don't know if you noticed as well, but after that, they had a corner in injury time, and the whole crowd went quiet. And I thought, oh no, please don't show how nervous we are. Surely we can't throw away 2 goals in the last 4 minutes. But then somebody started cheering and it all got better and we just cleared it. It wasn't really that much danger, to be honest. I expected Southampton, especially Pella, when he came on, I thought, oh no, he's really good. I actually rate him more than Austin or Long. So when he came on, I was even more worried, and he did win quite a few headers.
He's about 7'6", isn't he?
God, he just looks massive, just like a superhuman. So I did expect them to really throw the kitchen sink, but they just didn't seem to have the heart. It was bizarre.
No, they'd run out of steam, of ideas. I don't know what it was. Always worried because at 2-1, nick one, and just get nervous, and before you know it, there's equalised in the last kick of the game, but didn't happen last night. But still, I guess most games when we're winning 2-0 and the whistle goes, I am pleased, I get up, I cheer. But last night when the whistle went, it was like we just scored a goal. I leapt off my seat and was punching the air. A guy behind me who's a bit older than me, which is saying something, was saying, this is as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better than this. And I think if you've supported Bournemouth, for as long as we have, and probably most people who've supported Bournemouth for even just 10 years, to beat Southampton in that fashion in the Premier League, I mean, potentially we've had better days in the past few years, but it was right up there, wasn't it?
It's to sort of coin a phrase, it's what dreams are made of, isn't it? To get into the Premier League is one thing that certainly I didn't expect ever in my lifetime, but then to beat Southampton in the Premier League at home and do it comfortably, I say it doesn't get much better than that, I don't think.
Yeah, we can certainly enjoy that one until the next time we play them, at least. So that puts us 8 points clear. We mentioned the Newcastle game, 8 points clear of relegation, I should say. We mentioned the Newcastle game. Even a point there would probably maintain that. I think Swansea are they playing Norwich at the weekend? I know that Sunderland are playing Southampton. Hopefully they'll get the Southampton backlash. It's been another strange thing about our so-called rivalry with Southampton this season. There's been times, and this will be the case on Saturday, when I've wanted them to win, which has never happened before. So hopefully they will beat Sunderland. But yeah, on the rivalry, or this is in inverted commas, I guess it was always going to be something that would only come back from them if we were to become some kind of threat to them. And us winning last night, and it would take probably a bit more than that, makes us more of a serious contender to be some sort of rival to them. I mean, it's strange because it's fun to have a rival in football, like a proper rival, because then when you play them, those games are big games, and if you can win, it's absolutely fantastic, as we've discovered in the past 24 hours. For them, it will take an awful lot. You almost think it's impossible that anything could replace the rivalry that they've got with Portsmouth. I did hear there was some minor scuffles, perhaps at the train station or somewhere around the town, although it did sound like it was young men, like teenagers, acting like idiots, thinking it was important to have little punch-ups to show the might of their of the team they supported. But I don't think it's quite reached the derby stroke rivalry status yet for them, has it?
Well, for me, it's definitely a derby because it's close. That's the definition of a derby for me. Somewhere that you're playing a team that's very close to you, and they're the closest team that we've got, really, to be playing against. But rivalry, I think you're absolutely right. That comes over years where there are regular beatings either way. In the past, they've just turned us over. we're saying 58 years since we've beaten them in the league, but if we could stay in this league a few seasons and the competition is tight, I think that rivalry will grow. I don't think it'll ever replace Pompey. I think that's, you're born with that now, aren't you, really? People have been there for too long and hated each other for too long. I don't want hatred. I just the rivalry's sort of like quite nice. And the whole sort of Twitter furore about we don't care, and then we say we don't care either, but we're both retweeting it. So somebody cares.
Yeah, I think you have to take out. I mean, anything on Twitter, or almost anything on Twitter, has to be taken with a pinch of salt, because it never seems to be quite reflected in reality, as we saw at Watford on Saturday. I expected, and this is almost entirely down to the flack that flies around on Twitter, which probably involves no more than about 50 people. I expected to be a bit of a sort of fiercer atmosphere at Vicarage Road, but it never really came to much. And I read somewhere that it should be called the social media derby, because that seems to be the only place where there's any actual rivalry taking place. So yeah, I think it's potential to grow, and that's a good thing. I would definitely enjoy that, but like you said, it wants to be kept within reason. We don't. I mean, I think most proper rivalries between teams that have got history have, unfortunately, spilt over into hatred and behaviour that is totally unreasonable and overreacting to the fact that it's a football match. It's not life or death.
Yeah.
And we don't really want that. So, it's perhaps best avoided altogether. But it certainly made a difference beating them last night. And it made a difference for you too, Dave, because you've only been on the podcast once before. Last time we played Blackburn last season, we drew 0-0. I think the game was most notable for the fact that the kickoff was delayed when the Spur Road was blocked, and Tommy Elvik and Artur Boruc and perhaps some other players couldn't get to the game. So that isn't much of a memory. But this one, fantastic. You've come on what is essentially an historic night. So thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast, and hopefully next time you reappear, we'll have more history to celebrate.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks ever so much.
Great stuff there from Dave. And let's hope the two of us are not in our dotage the next time we defeat our friends from St Mary's. A long trip to the northeast beckons for the Cherry Nation at the weekend, so have a safe journey if you're travelling, and hopefully we will return with more vital points in the bag. Swap the cherries in all departments, and goodbye. This podcast is sponsored by the White Bear, your local micropub on Southbourne Grove, where you can't watch the game, but you can definitely talk about it. Head to the White Bear on any AFCB match day wearing your team shirt and receive 30p off each pint. Check out www.thewhitebear.co.uk.